In this first video tutorial, you will learn basic usage of the poker analysis software Flop Inspector. The opening screen of the program has two parts, the main tab with the flop overview and the hand strength filters section. The first part we'll take a look at is the innovative flop overview tab. This interface is a neat representation of all flops. While a lot of poker software focuses on how to play a range on one exact flop, the Flop Inspector will help you create a complete strategy for how to proceed on all 22,100 flop combinations. The most basic thing you can do with the Flop Inspector is to explore the distribution of all flops. Any serious poker player should know how often different flops will occur. By using the base selection filters, you find the frequencies of different types of flops. The first way to filter is by the highest card on the flop. Use the checkboxes to see all the ace-high flops. In the lower right you see approximately 22% of all flops are ace-high. Each square in the flops panel represents the flops that have same card ranks with all possible suit combinations. By hovering over the squares and clicking to make them stick, we see that a flop with 3 aces has 4 possible combinations. The paired ace-ace-king has 24, while the unpaired ace-king-queen can be dealt in 64 different ways. Similarly, we find that 55% of flops are queen-high or higher, and that 40% of all flops have no possible flush draw. Enter a starting hand to see how it interacts with the whole distribution of flops. Note that this reduces the number of possible flops to 19,600. You find 4 flops that will give us a straight flush. Add everything that is 2 pair or better by using the checkboxes. All the bolded boxes are shortcuts to check multiple other checkboxes. The Flop Inspector creates a default ungrouped group, containing all flops not accounted for in a filter. A consequential filter only selects flops that are not included in a previous one. Add 1 pair that is not a board pair and 4 to a flush. By selecting this filter group only, we find that there are 330 flops that give us a pair and a flush draw. We add a third filter to include the straight and flush combo draws. By using the same group name as before, our 2 filters will be grouped as one. Also use the Flop Inspector to see how we're doing against a villain range. Select multiple combinations by holding down the mouse button as you move it around. Set individual weights for each combination by using your mouse wheel. Hold down the Shift key to adjust the weight by intervals of 10. Use the Control key to select multiple combos for weight adjustment. Edit your ranges and directories by right-clicking in the space to the right. An open range can also be saved by using shortcut Control S. Now the percentage of adjusted flops differs from the filtered flops. This happens because of card removal effects, given that the villain range is skewed towards particular hand ranks and suitedness. In the group chart, we see a simple visualization of each group's frequency adjusted against villain range. Enable all groups to see the overall frequencies for the distribution of all flops. Click on Calculate Equities to see how your starting hand fares. The equities chart shows how often you flop different equities against the villain range. Use the slider to adjust the bar intervals. By hovering over the graph, you see how many flops there are in each bar. We use adjusted flops, so the percentages will be the times you actually see these flops versus selected villain range. The bars are divided in the filter groups we previously created. The graph legend can be configured to show the percentages of the base selection or the internal percentages between the enabled groups. Studying the equities chart, you see that there are lots of flops where our equity is high, that is not 2 pair plus or a combo draw. You select these ungrouped flops with a few mouse clicks. This brings you back to the Flops Overview tab, showing all the flops that give us 50% equity or higher that we did not already put in a group. In the Flop Details view, we see a list of all the currently filtered flops. Sort the details on any column you like. The Combo column will show how each flop's relative probability is affected by the villain range. We see that the range we created is particularly skewed towards aces. In the list you see a summary of villain's hand categories for the specific flop. To simulate that villain only continues with a certain percentage of hands, we set percentile of villain range. Using the equity versus hand algorithm, this means that equities are calculated against villain's top equity 40% of hands for each flop. This feature is also useful when analyzing the equities chart to see how different hand groups retain their equity as villain's proceeding range tightens. Right-click on a chart to save it as an image and share it with the world to prove our excellent point. Through the Files menu, you save and load the filters we created as well as our whole project. Easily compare how two different hands fare against the same range by using the Duplicate Project command in the File menu. That's it for the introduction of the Flop Inspector software. Good luck at the tables!